A person can lose everything: possessions, relationships, work, even health. But if the mind remains intact, they have not truly lost anything. On the contrary, someone may live surrounded by countless opportunities, knowledge, freedom, and resources, yet if they do not know how to use their own mind, they are living as though everything has been stripped away. The greatest danger is not external lack, but an idle mind. The mind never stands still. It is either being used to create reality, or it is defaulting to replicate the past. It can be a laboratory of the unimaginable, or it can be a recycling factory of old limitations. What matters is not how many books you have read, nor your degrees or family background. What matters is whether you have ever sat down, truly looked within, and asked, what am I using this mind for? The outer world is only a screen. The mind is the processor. Everything you see, possess, believe, or feel is the result of a chain of commands written from within. And what makes this story serious is that most people do not even know they are writing those commands. They think they are simply reacting to circumstances. In reality, circumstances are reacting to what they believe is true. An unused mind is not a mind that does not think. It thinks a great deal. But it thinks passively, unconsciously, shaped by media, by fear, by memory, by repeated words from others. These thoughts replay like an old song until they crystallize into a familiar reality, and then people mistake that for truth. Someone who has never observed their own mind is like a driver who has no idea where they are going. The farther they go, the farther away they become. But away from what and toward where? They may be driving a supercar, but if they cannot control the wheel, that car could take them into an accident rather than to a destination. In the same way, your mind is the strongest tool you have, but because it is so powerful, if it is not directed, it can lead you far away from yourself. True power does not lie in potential. It lies in awakening that potential, and to awaken it, you must be intentional. No one else can use your mind for you. No one else can design reality on your behalf with the inner images, the silent affirmations, and the visions you rehearse every single day. These things are invisible, yet they are the very material that constructs your visible life. You can use your mind to dwell on wounds, and you can use it to reconstruct an entirely new future. You can use your mind to condemn yourself, but you can also use it to grant yourself another chance. The mind has no morality. It does not distinguish right from wrong. It only obeys. It registers whatever you repeat most often with strong emotion, and it silently organizes the outer world to match that belief. The most frightening moment is when you think you are not choosing, while in fact you are still choosing every day, every hour, every minute, through default thoughts, habitual words, and unobserved emotions. Then you wonder why your life does not change, when in truth your mind is still running on an old loop. That is not destiny. That is an outdated program. Within each person is an invaluable asset, not because it is rare, but because it can make everything rare and precious. Yet most of this asset is left abandoned. People learn how to work, how to love, how to live, but very few ever learn how to think. Not to think more, but to think in the right direction, at the right level, at the right frequency. Because not every thought creates reality. Only those thoughts repeated with clarity, genuine feeling, and unwavering belief become true commands. When you realize the mind can be directed and you are the only one who has the right to direct it, you stop being a victim of circumstances. You become the architect of experience. You do not merely react to the world. You begin to rewrite the world from within. Imagine what would happen if you spent 10 minutes each day imagining a life that is whole, vivid, and specific, not as a distant dream, but as a blueprint under construction. Imagine what would happen if you stopped thinking about what went wrong and began to picture what is coming. Imagine what would happen if you stopped asking how and started asking, what if everything were possible? No matter where you are, what you have gone through, or what you are facing, your mind is still there. And if it remains, everything can begin again. But to begin again, you must stop. Stop to see how you have been using this mind. Stop to decide that from now on, no thought will pass through unconsciously, but will be chosen as carefully as though you were selecting the very materials for the spiritual home of your soul. The world will not change because you want it to. It will change when you change the invisible structure that creates it, and that structure is in the mind. If your mind is a garden, then thoughts are the seeds. If you do not choose the seeds, weeds will grow, and then you will call that your life. The most dangerous asset is not an empty mind. It is a crowded mind filled with thoughts you never chose. When you do not use your mind consciously, someone or something will use it for you. Advertisements, social media, memories, fears, wounds, habits, all are waiting for the chance to slip into that empty space. And if you are not alert, they will shape you before you even realize who you are. The greatest asset you own is not in banks, real estate, or reputation. It is right inside your head. Its danger does not come from thieves, but from neglect. Yet if today you decide to open that door again, clean it out, arrange it anew, and begin to think as though each thought were a sacred incantation, everything can change, not gradually, but beginning the very moment you choose a new thought. Because in this world nothing is more powerful than a mind that has awakened and is being used in the right direction. People often say, if you want more, you must do more. But if you do more with the same way of thinking, the result will only be repetition, more exhaustion, more stress, and deeper disappointment. The world already has more than enough people working hard without ever changing their lives. It also has more than enough superficial advice, temporary formulas, and easily forgotten promises. What is missing is awakening. Not everyone is ready to hear this. But the truth does not need to be welcomed in order to be true. It only needs to be touched at the right time. And if you are reading these lines, perhaps the time has come for you to realize the secret to creating wealth has never been out there. It is not in the market, not in the trends, not in the money you have or lack. It is not waiting for you to win the lottery, to be promoted, or to meet the right person. The secret lies in the one place no one can ever take from you unless you abandon it yourself within. You are already in possession of a factory producing reality, operating 24 hours a day, without electricity, without licenses, without external workers. That is the mind. And within that mind you have a mechanism for shaping reality more powerful than any financial tool, inner imagery, combined with belief and emotion. All wealth begins with an image. Before it becomes a building, it is a blueprint. Before it is a blueprint, it is an idea. And before the idea, there is someone who believed it could be despite circumstances. That is the first step no investor can take on your behalf. And that is also the reason why many people hold money but cannot keep wealth. They have the result but not the root. There is a paradox that only those who have ever woken up in the middle of the night, empty, weary, and asking, "What am I still missing?" can truly feel. True abundance does not come from what you have, but from how you feel about yourself when you have nothing. And from that inner state, reality begins to shift. Wealth is not accumulated from the outside. It is attracted from the inside. It arrives as a natural response to a frequency that has already been tuned. When you carry the vibration of lack, you unconsciously push good things away. When you emit the signal of sufficiency, not artificially but by genuinely living from it, you become like a living magnet. Be honest for a moment. Have you ever worked hard, studied, continuously applied countless tips and strategies, and still felt like something was holding you back? As though every door remained closed no matter how hard you knocked. If the chosen to 12, for the string des lasten, answer is yes. Perhaps the problem is not in your actions, but in the level of belief radiating from within. Because you do not attract what you want. You attract what you believe is possible for you. You cannot overcome an external reality without first breaking the internal limits. And those limits are often cleverly disguised in the form of realism, I'm just being cautious, or I'm not dreaming. So let me ask you something. If within you there were an invisible switch, and by flipping it your entire financial direction could change, would you be willing to flip it today, not with logic, but with the decision of the heart? With a single moment where you sit down, stop resisting reality, and choose to look straight at the only thing you truly control, awareness. If you are ready, leave a comment with the words, "I'm ready," or simply the number 1. Not to please anyone, but to mark for yourself that you have placed your hand on the switch. And I will also know that you are present, not just passing by like so many others. That presence is the most precious thing to someone creating this content. Truly thank you, and I am grateful. Change does not have to begin with an event. It begins with a realization that you do not need more opportunities. You need a new inner vision, that you do not need to become someone else. You need to return to a version that has always existed, but has been covered by the dust of years spent believing false ideas of who you are. Wealth is not a destination to reach. It is a dimension of living, a way of thinking, a language that is not spoken with words but vibrates through every action you take, every look in your eyes, every decision you make. You do not need to chase it. You need to become the one it seeks. No one can grant you abundance, but no one can prevent you from summoning it either when you live as though you already have it from within. Because this world does not operate on a system of asking and giving. It operates on resonance. What you send out, you receive back. And here is the final thing I want you to remember from this part. Money does not listen to what you say, but it always hears clearly the signal you emit. And that signal is not generated in the bank, the company, or out there. It is broadcast from the quietest place within you, the place where if you stop long enough, listen deeply enough, you will discover that everything you have been searching for has been there from the beginning. No one doubts your effort. The years of late nights and early mornings, the sacrifices, the patience, the learning, the adapting, all of it is real. But results do not speak through the number of hours you have tried. They respond to the level of belief you carry. And if reality has not changed, perhaps it is not because you have done too little, but because you have been acting from a false belief. Every action originates from an inner state. You can work as though you are running from lack, or as though you are inviting abundance. The same action but different energy will produce different outcomes. And what makes the difference is not technique, but the frequency of emotion operating beneath it. The more people work hard, the clearer the world reveals one truth: effort is not enough. Without the right belief, it is only the repetition of limits. Every action is written upon by a core belief. Believe you will fail, and your actions will be cautious, doubtful, self-limiting. Believe you can, and every move will lean toward expansion. And whether or not you say it out loud, the mind is always honest with what you truly believe. It does not listen to the positive phrases you try to think. It only operates according to what you feel is true. Outwardly you may smile, but inwardly, if you still carry the sense that you are unworthy, reality will reflect that feeling without judgment, without condemnation. There are people who are not especially skilled, who do not have to push too hard, and yet results flow toward them naturally. Not because they are lucky, but because they have shaped an inner field of trust that causes every action they take to align with a vision already alive within them. They are not striving to get something. They act as though they already are. And life responds to those who act as though what they expect has already begun to exist. You may plan perfectly, acquire countless skills, meet numerous people, invest enormous effort, but if deep inside you still believe that what you desire is distant, unrealistic, or not meant for you, then all effort is like building a house on sand. It may stand temporarily, but it has no foundation. Reality does not require you to prove you are worthy. It only requires that you believe deeply enough. Belief not with words, but with the entire way you think, feel, decide, and act every day. Every decision you make is a declaration to the universe: this is what I believe is real. When you choose the safe option out of fear of loss, when you delay because you are not certain, when you refuse an opportunity because you think you are not ready, that is not caution. That is a silent oath: I believe I am not enough. Belief does not live in the head. It lives in behavior. And that behavior becomes evidence. Evidence reinforces belief. The circle begins and you are trapped in the mirror of your own thoughts. To break the loop, you must change the root, the image you carry of yourself. If you see yourself as someone who is always lacking, always needing to work twice as hard, always needing recognition to feel valuable, you will act as though you are behind. But if you see yourself as someone already carrying potential, as an open door rather than a closed one, as a center drawing good things toward you, you will not need to force. You will simply live at that frequency, and everything will begin to align itself in a new order. The mind does not joke. It does not distinguish between performance and reality. It only records repetition. If you continue to live in the imagery of failure, repeating the story, I am not good enough, I need to try harder, like a nameless refrain, then you are not creating motivation. You are rewriting the program of failure, and you will act from that program, drawing results that match it. The truth is, you are already enough, not because you are perfect, but because you carry within you everything necessary to begin from the right state. The question is no longer, how do I succeed, but rather, how have I managed to doubt myself for so long? Because if you act from a false belief, you will need enormous effort to gain very little. But if you act from the right level of belief, where you no longer need permission to be enough, no longer need validation to begin, then you are no longer resisting reality. You become its flow. You have not lacked effort, but now you need a different direction of belief. A direction where you are not searching for miracles out there, but returning to what is already within, the image of someone living in alignment with creative power, with the authority to expand, with the rhythm life itself wishes to express through you. Freedom does not come from how much you achieve. It comes from no longer being controlled by a false belief about your worth. And wealth in the same way does not come from doing more, but from living with the sense I am worthy of receiving, even when no one has acknowledged it, yet even when no evidence has appeared, simply because it is true to who I am. You do not need to do more. You need to begin from the right place, and that place has never been outside of you. Every civilization, whether ancient or modern, whether it spoke in the language of gods or of science, has touched upon the same law, though with different words. Some call it faith, others call it creative consciousness. Science calls it the operating system of the brain. But no matter the name, the essence remains the same. You do not live according to reality, you live according to the belief you carry. It is no coincidence that in every age belief has been regarded as the most powerful factor in changing destiny, because belief is not just emotion, nor is it an abstract thought. It is life energy, a root program, the code that shapes the very structure of experience. Everything you feel, attract, keep, or lose, all passes first through the lens of belief, whether you are conscious of it or not. Some believe that money only comes to the cunning and they live lives of constant lack. Some believe happiness is a luxury and they repeatedly encounter events that rob them of joy. Yet there are also those who believe everything is always moving in their favor and they walk with an ease that seems almost unshakable. Belief is the origin of behavior, and behavior is the instrument that shapes the form of the world. Belief does not live in what you say. It lives in the deep agreement within consciousness. You may say you believe in the good, but if every time an opportunity arises you step back out of fear of being wrong, then what you actually believe is "I cannot." And no command sent to the universe is stronger than an affirmation repeated with emotion. The universal law does not respond to desire. It responds to what you perceive as real. Desire may be immense, but if within you there still lingers the belief that it is unlikely, then you are sending out a signal opposite to your longing, and the universe can only organize reality according to that central signal. Because in the dimension of energy there are no words, no pretending, only frequency. That is why some succeed not because they know more than you, but because they believe more firmly. And they believe in a way that does not require proof. They do not run around convincing others. They do not strain themselves to hold an image. They do not wait for conditions to be favorable before believing. They begin by believing, and everything favorable follows as a natural response. True belief requires no reason. It comes from a level deeper than logic. It is the silent knocking of your soul saying, "It is time to remember who you are." And if you pause long enough, you will see every miracle happens right after you believe in what has not yet existed. Because if you only believe once, you see you are only reflecting the past. But if you believe before seeing, you are creating the future. The universal law does not show favoritism. It does not choose the beautiful, the skilled, or the privileged. It only responds precisely to the frequency you emit, like a mirror without emotion. And if you believe you will always be tested, you will continually find yourself in situations demanding you prove it. If you believe wealth is hard to grasp, every opportunity that nears you will somehow slip away. Not because you are unworthy, but because you are projecting an invisible command: "I am not ready to hold on to the good." The material world does not create itself. It is formed from a deeper layer of vibration, where ideas, images, emotions, and beliefs function as the blueprint. You cannot repair a house by repainting the walls if the foundation is still tilted. In the same way, you cannot change reality if your core beliefs remain distorted. You may earn more money, but if you still believe money will soon leave, it will. You may enter a relationship, but if you still believe you are unworthy of love, that love will quickly mirror back the fracture within you. This is not punishment, it is the accuracy of a law. And once you understand this, you no longer see yourself as a victim of circumstance. You begin to understand everything that has been, is, and will come to you begins from a level of belief deeper than words. The important question is not what do you want, but rather what do you truly believe? Because you can only receive what you believe is possible for yourself. Belief is the only real limit. The more you expand your belief, the wider the world becomes. The more you cling to safety, the smaller the world contracts into the shape of your fear. If you have ever felt bound by circumstance, look again at the beliefs you are running on. Who planted them in you? How many years have you repeated them? How many times have you acted as though they were true? And more importantly, what would happen if, starting today, you replaced one old belief with a new image? No need for certainty, no need to know how, just believe as though it were a new command. The universal law will handle the rest. Belief does not change the world in a single minute, but it begins the process that nothing else can begin. It is the first key that starts the engine of reality creation. And if you hold it steady, undisturbed by circumstance, unmoved by doubt, then sooner or later the world must rearrange itself to reflect what you have already seen in your mind. Do not ask whether it works. Ask whether you have been steady enough in what you believe. For there is no formula more powerful than a person living in the image of what they have not yet seen but know is coming simply because they believe. And no one can do that for you. Belief is not something to learn, it is something to remember. Remember that you once believed in many things before someone made you doubt. Now is the time to reclaim that power, not with words, but by living as though your belief were the greatest creative force in the universe, because it truly island. Belief is not about repeating pleasant words in your head, nor is it about forcing away negative thoughts. Because positive thinking, if not accompanied by clear imagery and genuine emotion, is only a beautiful shell built to temporarily soothe the anxiety beneath. And the mind is not deceived by words. It only acts according to what you picture most vividly and feel most deeply. You cannot create a new reality simply by saying, everything will be fine. But if within your mind there already arises a vivid image of the life you desire, where you can see the colors, the movements, the sounds and the emotions of it, then even without speaking a word, the subconscious has received the brace command. It begins to operate to reorganize your entire system of perception, behavior, decision-making and awareness to match that image. Human beings are not guided by thoughts, they are guided by images. A child does not need language to fear the dark, not because it thinks negatively, but because it imagines something lurking behind the door. In the same way, when an adult worries about finances, it is not because of the number in the account, but because of the inner images in their mind, the scenes of loss, of failure, of rejection, so vivid that they overpower any words of knownness. Reassurance. Belief is when you can close your eyes and see, feel, hear, touch a reality that has not yet happened, as though it were already taking place. It is when you imagine something so clearly, so vividly, so tangibly, that your entire nervous system reacts as if it were present. At that point, the body begins to adapt, behavior begins to shift, and every decision you make begins to arise from a new blueprint. That is when belief becomes the true creative force. On the other hand, if you only practice positive thinking as a mental exercise, but the images you hold inside remain the old failures, the bad scenarios, the unresolved wounds, then the subconscious cannot operate differently. It will continue replaying the old film regardless of the new title you try to paste on it, because the inner image is the native language of the subconscious. And if you do not consciously choose the image, the subconscious will automatically choose for you, most often from the past, from fear, from habit, from experiences repeated so many times you think you have forgotten them. But they have never left. They only hide beneath the polished words you attempt to replace them with, but have never truly believed. The mind does not record what is right or wrong. It only stores what has been repeated many times and charged with strong emotion. An image may not be real, but if you see it every day, live in it each morning when you wake and each night before you sleep, it gradually becomes the anchor that shapes experience. Just like someone haunted by a dream, waking with their heart racing, their feelings still lingering even though they know it was only a dream, the reality you live is formed in the same way by the dream you hold in your consciousness day after day. Therefore, instead of trying to think positively to fight the negative, spend time constructing an image more vivid and more defined than any negative image could intrude with. It does not need to be grand. It only needs to be clear enough, real enough, emotional enough for you to feel, this is me. Not as a wish, but as a part of yourself waiting to be released. Imagine this. You wake up and step into a new day, not with the familiar feeling of anxiety, but with a bright, clear image of yourself, successful, free, abundant living, a meaningful life. You see yourself walking with steady eyes, speaking with confidence, deciding quickly, standing in inner calm. No one else knows this is happening inside you. But from that space, everything begins to shift, because you cannot live differently if you still see yourself the same. And you cannot act as a new person if in your mind you are still replaying images of failure, wounds, limits, and doubts. To change your life, you must first change the inner film, not just the script. True belief is when you imagine what you desire in enough detail to generate a feeling. That feeling activates a signal. The signal creates behavior. The behavior produces results. And the results reinforce the belief. This is the loop that constructs reality. But it always begins with the image. You do not need to tell the world you are changing. You only need to be silent, step into your inner space and begin living as though what you believe is already unfolding. For reality does not wait until you are ready to allow you to believe. It waits until you believe clearly enough, long enough, deeply enough for it to begin rearranging according to the image you have built. All great things begin as a faint vision, repeated, refined, clarified, felt, and finally held as a living image. You do not need more encouragement. You need a vision strong enough that whenever doubt arises, you can return to the source, the point where you have seen it so clearly that it cannot be denied. That is when positive thinking is no longer necessary, because you are no longer thinking, you are living in the image, and you no longer need to force belief, because belief has become the default structure within you. Just as you do not need to remind yourself that the sun will rise tomorrow, you know it is true, and from that knowing every action flows naturally. You do not need to be extraordinary to create the miraculous. You only need to live inside the right image, long enough with real emotion, because belief in the end is not what you say, but what you have already seen, already felt so clearly that even if no one else sees it, you can no longer not believe. And from that moment, reality is only what arrives afterward. No sound is needed, no action, no physical touch, and yet thought can still change the structure of reality, because thought is not merely a process happening in your head. It is a vibrational field, a frequency, an invisible command being transmitted in silence yet received by the entire environment around you with absolute precision. Each time you think, you are not only creating emotion, you are sending out waves, and those waves do not stop at the boundary of skin, language, or distance. They pass through all physical barriers and reshape space with what science is still striving to name the frequency of consciousness. Thought is energy, but not vague energy. Every thought you hold, if repeated often enough, charged with strong emotion and sustained long enough, becomes a structured vibration. Just as sound shapes patterns on the surface of water, thought shapes patterns in the vibrational field around you. And once that shape is set, it begins to attract the exact kind of experiences that match the frequency it has emitted. You do not need to believe in the metaphysical to recognize this. You have walked into a room and immediately felt suffocated even before anyone spoke. You have stood near someone and felt uneasy for no apparent reason. You have also met a stranger and instantly felt safe, trusting. That is not random intuition. That is thought broadcast like radio waves, and you are the receiver picking it up. Now reverse that understanding. Every day you live, you are not only emitting emotional signals, you are radiating an entire vibrational field, with the center being the thoughts you hold most frequently. And that field is the invisible map, guiding opportunities, people, and events, either toward you or away from you. No chasing is needed. The moment you think differently, the current shifts direction. Thought is like an arrow. Once released, it does not pause midway to ask if you are certain. It flies straight to the target defined by your belief. That is why the things you fear often happen and the things you doubt often avoid you. Not because you deserve it, but because the thoughts you hold have sent out the signal for that very experience to appear as a vibrational replica born from your inner state. Do not confuse fleeting thoughts with thoughts of force. They are not the same. Fleeting thoughts are notions that come and go, leaving no trace. But thoughts of force are those repeated with deep emotion. They do not need many words. They only need inner consistency. And it is precisely those kinds of thoughts, silent yet organized, that are running the quality of your life. Now take a look at what is unfolding in your reality. No need to judge, no need to rationalize. Just observe. And you will see circumstances are not random. They are the footprints of a chain of thoughts held released and given the power to generate. If the present is repeating a pattern of lack, stagnation, chaos, or limitation, what you need is not to strain at changing circumstances. What you need is to stop and change the frequency of thought being broadcast. No one can hear what you think, but the entire universe feels it, and it is responding without missing a beat. It is the precision of vibration that makes thought a weapon, invisible but not to be underestimated. A person who does not control their thoughts is like someone holding a weapon without knowing their finger is on the trigger. They do not understand why they keep encountering setbacks, betrayals, dead ends, or a loss of inspiration for life, even while trying hard to do the right things. But what they fail to see is this: the thoughts they hold are in conflict with the reality they desire. You cannot expect wealth when your inner thoughts emit signals of fear and doubt. You cannot expect to be loved when your thoughts transmit the feeling of unworthiness. And you certainly cannot expect a new life if every day you continue sowing vibrations of failure, even through silent complaints. Thought is a command without words, and you are commanding reality each time you think something with certainty. If you understood this clearly, you would never allow yourself to think carelessly again. You would choose thoughts as carefully as precious seeds. You would speak as though mapping the future. You would practice purposeful silence. And when you did speak, it would be as though every sound carried weight in the structure of your life. We are not merely the result of the environment. We are the ones adjusting vibration in response to that environment. And the strange thing is, when your thoughts change, not only does your mind change, but the environment around you also begins to shift in ways logic cannot predict. Thought is where everything begins. Not action, not opportunity, not the people you know, but the images, the words, the emotions you repeat to yourself when no one is watching. Those are weapons. But whether you use them to build or to destroy, that is the choice you make. And if you want something to truly change, do not first ask, what should I do? Ask, what vibration am I emitting? That answer will lead you to the place where every weapon begins to take effect, not outside, but in the deepest layers of the thoughts you hold most firmly. And when that vibration is clear enough, strong enough, steady enough, the world will respond with an unmistakable precision. You do not need to give orders out loud. You do not need to sit down and write goals. You do not need to shout positive affirmations. Because from the moment you wake up until the time you go to sleep, you are already giving orders through what you think, feel, repeat, believe as true, and unconsciously imagine. The receiver of those commands is not the outside world. It is the subconscious, the most loyal, most neutral, and most powerful machine within the entire human system. The subconscious does not argue with you. It does not contradict. It does not ask right or wrong. It does not evaluate whether your thoughts are reasonable. It does not analyze whether you are worthy. It only records, and then it executes. Every image you repeat, every emotion you do not release, every prejudice you never dismantle yourself, all of these become data for the subconscious to operate on. And the strange thing is this, it never betrays you. Even if the command you send is wrong, distorted, or self-destructive, it still carries it out with absolute loyalty. You could live an entire life trying to fix things on the outside, but if you never reorganize the data inside, you are only repeating old results in new forms. Because the subconscious is not just memory, it is the hidden map directing every decision, reflex, emotion, relationship, opportunity, and even your limitations. It does not block you from achieving what you want. But if what you want contradicts what you believe is true, it will choose what you believe. You can write on paper, I am wealthy. But if your subconscious has deeply absorbed the story money is difficult, then your entire body, your behavior, and even the choices that seem random will move toward verifying that belief. Not because you are wrong, but because you have not yet realized you yourself have trained the subconscious to become that way through years of living in feelings of lack, repeating negative phrases, and holding on to unhealed memories of pain. The subconscious does not hold on to what you want, it holds on to what you believe. And to change how it operates, you cannot use logic. You must use the language it understands, clear images, consistent emotions, and intentional repetition. Each night before sleep, when you imagine what you desire as though you are living in it, that is when you are reprogramming this loyal machine. Each time you choose a new response instead of sliding into an old habit, you are digging a new behavioral channel over one long engraved. And every time you hold a good image of yourself, even when no one recognizes it, you are rebuilding the foundation of a new person starting from the deepest level. The fascinating thing is you cannot perform for the subconscious. It does not care about words. It records your overall vibration. You may say, I'm fine, but if fear still lingers inside, it will choose the signal of fear to act on. You may smile, but if your mind still pictures failure, it will choose that image to continue writing the story. Therefore, the real work is not in what you say, but in what you hold within. Picture the subconscious as fertile soil. Whatever seed is sown repeatedly, it will grow. Whether it is the seed of joy or the seed of fear, whether it is the image of success or failure, it does not choose for you. You are the one who chooses the thoughts, the emotions, the memories to keep the story to believe. And when you choose for too long without awareness, that soil becomes a wild forest. The more you neglect it, the harder it is to clear. But like any soil, as soon as you return to it, nurture it till it chews new seeds and remain consistent long enough, you will see a new harvest. The subconscious never refuses you. It only waits to be guided intentionally. Not tomorrow, but right now you can begin sending a new command. It does not need to be perfect, only clear. It does not need to be overconfident, only consistent enough. It does not need proof. Only the holding of a new image that you know aligns with the life longing to express itself through you. One day you will realize the coincidences that happened in your life were in fact the chain of commands you had long issued, and the subconscious, loyal, like a silent soldier, had arranged every piece to verify what you once believed was true. And if you stop today, choose again your thoughts, emotions, words, reactions, and inner images, then no spoken prayer is needed. That very act is already a silent prayer, but powerful enough to open a new gate in reality. The subconscious is not a burden you must overcome. It is the most loyal friend you have ever had. It is just that for a long time you have been giving the wrong orders. And now it is time for you to reclaim the right to direct, not by force but by awareness. You do not need to do more. You only need to do differently from within. And that machine, like every perfect machine, will operate exactly as you guide it. Not fast, but never wrong. Not loud, but never imprecise. And from the moment you realize you are giving the command, you will never again be the victim of any circumstance. You become the one who redesigns the deepest field of operation, the place where all true change begins. You have sown good seeds. You have held a vivid image in your mind. You have felt the vibration of what you desire, as though it were approaching. But then something slips in without sound, without warning, without clear signs, and only a moment later the entire structure of belief begins to crack. The image you held fades. The emotion you built falls out of rhythm. The affirmations you once declared suddenly sound hollow. This saboteur does not wear the face of an enemy, yet it is always closer than you think. Its name is doubt. Nothing collapses a powerful thought faster than doubt, seeping in at the very moment you believed you were strong. No great event is needed, only a passing remark from someone, a conflicting piece of news, a small failure, or just a fleeting moment of disconnection from your inner self, and doubt finds its opening. From there, it begins to drain the very energy of spirit you worked so hard to build. Doubt does not need proof. It only needs to plant a seed. A wordless question, what if it's not real? And if you are not watchful, that seed will sprout faster than you expect. Because the subconscious does not require right or wrong. It only requires repetition. And doubt, if repeated through worry, negative imagination, endless analysis, will swiftly become a living thought. No longer just a question, but a reversed belief. The irony is this doubt not only destroys what you want, it keeps you tied to what you no longer want. It pulls you back into the old safe zone where there is no risk but also no miracle. It disguises itself as caution, as reality, as necessary prudence, but in truth it is fear, dressed in the robes of logic. Doubt is the shortcut to failure, but disguised as intelligence. You ask yourself, but what if it doesn't work? What if it isn't meant for me? If others fail, why would I succeed? What have I done to deserve it? These questions seem harmless, but in fact they are invitations for doubt to enter, sit down, and begin directing you to act in retreat. Your mind is a battlefield. On one side is the image you have seen of yourself, brighter, stronger, fuller. On the other side is the whisper saying, maybe it's just a dream. And if you let doubt speak too long without responding with awareness, you have handed over control without realizing it. You still live, still work, still try, but beneath it all your vibration is scattered, misaligned, weakened. Doubt does not stop at thoughts. It seeps into behavior. You begin to delay. You begin to second-guess yourself. You begin to speak neutral words to shield yourself from disappointment. You begin to choose the easier path, not because it is right, but because it is safe. You may never call it doubt, but you silently serve it. Remember this. Every powerful vision must be held with singleness of mind, not forced, but with an unshakable sense of knowing. Doubt is the breaker of that unity. Each time you agree with it, you are cutting the power from the painting you are coloring. And if you keep switching your belief on and off like a light switch, do not be surprised when your reality flickers like a faulty bulb. What happens when you give doubt no seat at the table? You do not become blind. You become selective with vibration. You see difficulties, but you do not identify with them. You hear bad news, but you do not accept it as destiny. You may still waver at times, but you do not build your house on shaking ground. You pause, remember the original image, and hold it as you would hold a door opening into what you know is true, even if no one else sees it yet. Because the truth is this, it is not reality that makes you doubt. It is doubt that prevents reality from taking shape. When you hold fast to the image, even while nothing outside has changed, you are transmitting a clear signal, I have decided. And the universe, like a perfect feedback system, will gradually rearrange every detail to fit that decision. But when you have not truly decided, when you keep a back door open in case of failure, when part of your heart still thinks, maybe it's not my turn, then doubt has the right to exist. And reality will reflect that division as a blurry picture, as a journey without completion. Doubt can only be defeated by decisiveness, not with the world, but with yourself. Once and then once again. Every morning, every night. Each time fear comes, you do not resist it, do not argue, do not deny. You simply remember the image you have chosen. You sit back into that feeling. You hold that vibration like an anchor tied to what is real, even if no one else sees it but you. Do not wait to eliminate all doubt before acting. Act as though what you have chosen is already happening. And if doubt returns, let it see this: you are no longer the person swayed by every fleeting emotion. You are the one consciously programming reality by holding steady to what you have seen, not with words, with conviction. And when doubt no longer has a place, the miraculous is no longer distant. It becomes the natural response of a mind that has chosen, has known, has believed, and is no longer divided. No one is born choosing their circumstances. No one chooses to be abandoned, hurt, forgotten, or treated unjustly. But there comes a time when you must choose again, either continue living as someone dictated by fate, or begin the journey of transformation where you are no longer the victim of any story, not even the true ones. Inner transformation does not begin outside. It begins in a very small moment when you realize that the emotion you carry is not mandatory, when you understand that reaction is not inevitable, that you can feel differently, think differently, respond differently, and the result will no longer be the same. Many people live in adult bodies while carrying inside a child who was once wounded. They act from memory, not from the present. They decide based on what has happened, not on what they want to create. And they believe they are free while every choice is still dictated by an old feeling that has not been healed. You do not need to magnify what has passed in order to heal it. You only need to be honest. What within you is still living from an old memory. What within you still reacts as though that day has never gone by. What within you is still being controlled by a version far too small compared to the person you are today. Transformation does not occur through willpower. It occurs when you look directly at yourself without judgment. When you stop blaming, stop making excuses, stop retelling the old story as an escape, not because you are wrong, but because you deserve to live without being pulled backward by what has been. Victims always have valid reasons. They can recount every detail of what made them the way they are. They can make others sympathize, pity, understand. But the truth is, this pity does not heal anyone, and understanding a story has never meant overcoming it. You are only truly free when you no longer need others to acknowledge your pain in order to begin a new chapter. Architects are different. They do not deny that things have been broken, but they do not stand there forever. They begin to design again, even if all they hold are fragments. They do not wait for perfection. They only need clarity. And from that clarity, small steps are placed. A new action, a new choice, a new response, a new image in the mind. Not loud, but enough to change direction. You cannot be both builder and justifier. You must choose. Either keep the reason or claim the power. And true power does not come from controlling others. It comes from being able to stand in any circumstance and still choose what you believe is true, without proving, without waiting. Inner transformation is the journey of pulling energy back from old scripts. It is when you refuse to let the past write the present chapter. It is when you dare to live without needing a reason to be happy. It is when you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What will I create from here?" Because as long as you think you are the chosen one, you have lost creative power. But when you know you are the one choosing not what happens but how to respond, then you have stepped from darkness into light. No guide is needed. No apology is needed. No world has to change first. Only your perspective needs to change. A new perspective will create a new vibration, and a new vibration will change the entire experience. That is when everything that once made you collapse becomes merely the material to build something stronger. Not because you forgot, but because you are no longer the person who could be haunted by it. You have the right to redesign the definition of yourself, not based on what others have said, not based on what you once did wrong, but based on what you see in your consciousness whenever you are silent long enough to listen. There is a self waiting to live through you. Not as a reaction to life, but as a reflection of a new awareness, free, intentional, wise, and powerful. From victim to architect is not a leap. It is a sequence of small, steady steps. Each day you choose not to retell the old story. Each day you choose not to paralyze yourself with old memories. Each day you choose a new question, a new action, a new feeling no longer programmed. And each choice, no matter how small, is removing bricks from the old wall, is raising frames for the new house, is turning you from the teller of the past into the designer of the future. No one can live for you, but everything you have been through can become material if you step out of the role of victim, not to be strong, but to truly live. To know that the greatest power is not overcoming others, but overcoming the old version of yourself that once thought you were powerless. And from that place, a new world begins to form, not according to circumstance, but according to the design of someone who has chosen awareness. And that person is you. It is not difficult to keep a vivid image in your mind when everything flows in your favor, but to hold that image when the world turns its back, when others laugh, when failure knocks at your door, and you no longer know where you stand, that is where the true strength of spirit is tested. Vision is not a fanciful dream. It is a silent affirmation that you know where you are going, even if at present no one but you can see it. Vision is the light within and challenges the darkness outside. Each time you refuse to retreat before doubt, you are laying another stone into a foundation that nothing can shake. The world is not short of people who once had dreams, but those who dare to live by their vision, holding it steady through storms, through mockery, through moments that feel like failure, are as rare as real diamonds in an ocean of glass. Because not everyone understands, this vision is not validated by agreement, but by steadfastness. No one sees the seed sprouting beneath the ground. No one witnesses the roots spreading. But if you pull the plant too soon, simply because no green leaf has appeared, you are rejecting an entire garden waiting to bloom. Vision is the same. It lives in you as the seed lives in the earth. Do not kill it with the skeptical eyes of others. There will be times when you are the only one who believes in what you see, and that is when you must believe even more deeply. No need to explain, no need to prove, no need to call others to understand you. Only one thing is needed, that you still hold the vision, even when no one confirms it with you. The world may call you a dreamer, unrealistic, someone who does not know their place. But if you live to please the world, you will lose yourself. Yet if you live to express what is within you, will be the first to open a door others never thought was real. Vision does not need to be reasonable. It needs to be alive. It does not need to be understood by others. It only needs you to feel it more clearly than anything else. And when you hold it live with it each day, feed it with energy through your actions, emotions, and thoughts, reality begins to shift. The truth is this: every great thing was once considered madness. Every great change was once considered impossible. Not because it was wrong, but because the world had not yet caught up to it. Vision runs ahead of time. And if you carry a vision, know this: you are not here to repeat what already exists. You are here to open what has never yet appeared. To hold a vision is not to live in illusion. It is the art of living with what is unseen through a belief already established. When the world says impossible, you answer silently with each step forward. When failure comes, you do not panic, for you know it is only a crease in the larger tapestry being woven. Vision does not depend on circumstances. It lives independent of convenience. And it is precisely when circumstances grow difficult that vision reveals its true strength. You will know you carry a vision not when things are easy, but when everything around you tells you to quit, and you still continue, even if with just one silent step. No one is born strong. But those who hold the vision, even when rejected, doubted, or defeated, have trained themselves each time they refuse to give up. They understand true strength is not never being knocked down, but rising again in the very place you fell with a deeper conviction. Do not measure your vision by the temporary eyes of others. Do not value yourself by short-term results. Let every denial become a stone you step on to rise higher. Let the silence of the world become the background music for your quiet yet steady march. For when you keep that image live as though it is already real, cherish it each day as something sacred within you, there will come a time when the world cannot deny it anymore. Not because you have won, but because what you have held has become so clear, so tangible, that no one can dismiss it. You do not need everyone to understand you. You only need to hold the vision until it speaks for itself through results. And the miracle is this: the very moment you no longer need confirmation, that is when everything begins to confirm you. Vision does not come to comfort you. It comes to awaken you. Not to lull you into beautiful dreams, but to pull you back to the very center of your true self, where you no longer live by others' eyes, but by the light you have seen, even if only once. And if you still hold that vision, if you still see that image each time you close your eyes, if your heart still trembles each time you think of it, then do not turn back too soon, for perhaps you are closer than you think. And the only thing missing is not more proof, but one more time you choose to keep the vision instead of swaying with the world. Sometimes the greatest validation you can ever receive is not applause from others, but the quiet peace within that you have kept the flame alive while the wind has blown out everything else around. And if you hold it long enough, that light will not only guide you, but also those who once laughed at you. The subconscious does not speak human language. It does not respond to long philosophical arguments, it is not persuaded by logic, and it does not need evidence in order to act. If you want to communicate with the subconscious, do not try to explain. Begin to imagine. Vivid imagery is the native language of the subconscious. It does not need translation, it does not need reasoning, it does not need persuasion. It only needs a picture clear enough, emotion deep enough, and repetition steady enough. The subconscious will take the command and begin to reorganize the entire structure of your behavior, emotions, and vibration to move you closer to it. But most people do not use this language. They speak about what they want, but imagine what they fear. They write down goals, but in their minds replay scenes of failure. They read books, attend talks, take notes endlessly, but inside no truly clear image exists of what they are aiming toward. And then they wonder, why doesn't anything change? The subconscious does not care how much you know. It only cares what you see in your mind each day. Every image you keep, every scenario you silently repeat, whether you are conscious of it or not, are signals transmitted to the deeper level. And the subconscious, loyal as it always is, will operate according to what you show it. Recall a dream that once made you wake up with feelings so real, you needed minutes to realize it was not reality. Your body reacted for real. Your heartbeat was real. The sweat was real. The fear or joy real. Just one dream, one sequence of inner images was enough to make your whole nervous system respond as though it were living in reality. That is the clearest evidence of the power of imagery in programming the subconscious. You do not need to wait for circumstances to change to feel better. You need to change the movie playing in your head. If every day you replay a film of loss, fear, guilt, and failure, then the subconscious has no choice but to reflect that through emotions, energy, and results in life. But if you choose a new film of a person strong, peaceful, accomplished, and creative, then all of your vibrations will begin to synchronize in that direction. What matters is not what you imagine, but whether you feel it as real. If the image you hold in your mind is only a faint notion, lacking emotion, without color, without movement, then it is not strong enough for the subconscious to treat it as a command. On the other hand, if you can see yourself clearly in the new situation, hear your own voice, sense the environment around you, live in the emotion of success, freedom, love, then you are sending an extremely powerful signal to the deeper level. You do not need to meditate for hours or imagine like a professional artist. You only need to choose a quiet moment in the day, ideally just before sleep, and for a few minutes let your mind live in that image. Do not think "I wish." Do not ask "how will it happen?" Just live in it as though it is already real. The subconscious does not distinguish between imagination and reality if the emotion you carry is genuine. Vivid imagery has the power to penetrate every cell. It does not just change the mind, it begins to adjust the body itself. Many have restored health simply by visualizing their cells as strong every day. Many have overcome depression by imagining light radiating in their hearts. And many have transformed their financial lives simply by seeing themselves step into a new reality, day after day, until it ceased to be a dream and became a conviction. If you do not take time to design images for your mind, then your mind will automatically replay old ones. And most of those old images are not truly yours. They are the result of what others once said, did, or made you believe about not being enough. It is time you stop letting others direct the movie set inside you. Be the one to choose the frame, the colors, the script, and the message. Each time you imagine yourself living in a better version, you are not daydreaming, you are planning. Each time you feel joy over a vision not yet happened, you are not delusional, you are programming reality. The subconscious only needs consistency, not length, not perfection, just truth and repetition. The clearer you are, the faster it translates that signal into behavior, reflexes, and fitting choices. Eventually, you will find yourself acting in new ways without effort, because the inner picture has already changed. And that is the turning point. When you no longer need to force positivity, when you no longer repeat affirmations like a machine, when you no longer doubt, no longer ask, when you simply know one thing, it is happening from within. Vivid imagery is the fastest way to tell the subconscious, this is what I have chosen, and when you repeat it long enough, with enough feeling, with enough clarity, then no one, not even your past self, can deny what is taking shape. You do not need more strength. You only need clearer imagery. You do not need to force yourself to believe. You only need to let your heart resonate with what you want to become. And if you hold that, nurture it like a small flame, feed it through small actions, then that language will be heard by the subconscious, and the entire universe will begin to respond. Reality is not as rigid as you once thought. It is not a concrete wall that cannot be moved. It is like water reflecting what you place into it. And if you change what you consistently place upon that surface, meaning the stream of foundational thoughts, then the reflection will also change. This is not empty positive theory. This is a profound law of energy and consciousness. Thought is not only an inner activity, it is a form of energy with frequency. And when a thought is held long enough, repeated deeply enough with unwavering belief, it begins to create vibrations that affect the entire structure of reality around you. At first, nothing may appear to change, but beneath the surface, everything is being rearranged. You have lived in a certain reality not because it is the truth, but because it is what you believe to be true. And that belief came from the thoughts you repeated for years. Thought is like wind striking stone at first. No one notices the change. But over time, the stone wears away. And if stone can change, so can reality. There is one thing reality deeply respects: consistency. If you continually think in one direction, even when the outer world has not reflected it yet, reality will begin to lean toward it. It cannot resist consistency, because consistency is a clear signal, undisturbed, uninterrupted. And any intelligent system, even the universe, can only respond accurately when the input signal is steady and strong. Most people do not lack the ability to create a new reality. They only lack the consistency to hold a new thought long enough. One day they believe they are worthy, the next day they doubt. Today they see wealth as attainable, tomorrow it feels too far away, and so the signals they send out are constantly cut off. Reality responds in fragments, disjointed, unclear, and they conclude, no matter how hard I try, it doesn't work. It is not because you have not tried. It is because you have not been consistent. You do not change reality with 10 strong thoughts in a single day, followed by silence for a month. You change reality with one thought, clear, persistent, nourished daily like the steady beat of a heart, not loud, but enduring. Consistent thought has the power to reset the entire vibrational structure within you, and the vibration within you is the foundational blueprint reality must rely on to build experience. If you think of yourself as someone who cannot escape poverty, you are not only creating feelings of poverty, you are transmitting commands to every cell, every action, every small decision in your day to act according to that belief. But if you shift that belief and hold it consistently, then your entire system of behavior, reflexes, and surrounding opportunities will also reorganize. Think of a river that has long flowed in one direction. It cannot change course because of a passing breeze. But if you change the source, alter the pressure, reshape the terrain, gradually the river will carve a new path. Consistent thought is those changes, small, steady, deep, and long enough to overcome the old inertia. There will be days when you feel nothing, no evidence that what you believe is coming. But it is precisely on those days that if you keep holding the same thought as before, you are proving to both your subconscious and the universe that you have decided. And when you have decided, reality must adjust. That is the law. Reprogramming does not come from outside. It comes from within, from the place where you decide not to retreat, not to change your mind, just because you have not yet seen results. Reality does not quickly respond to fleeting thoughts. It only listens to what you affirm with your entire being. If you truly want something, think of it as though nothing else is worth thinking about. Let it become the new standard. Each time an old thought returns, do not fight it. Simply choose again, I do not think that way anymore. This is what I choose to believe now. And then continue. Like tuning a radio, you do not smash the device just because the signal is unclear. You simply turn the dial to the right frequency and keep your hand there. The signal will come. It cannot not come if you hold the frequency. Thought is the same. Reality does not respond according to your desired speed, but it always responds according to your consistency. And then one day you will look back and no longer recognize who you once were. Everything around you, how you live, how you respond, how you choose, will have changed. Not by anyone else, not by luck, but because you thought one thing long enough, strong enough, clear enough to make the entire structure of reality bend toward you. That is the quietest power you carry to reprogram reality, simply by holding steadfast to one thought. No shouting required, only the refusal to let go. And if you hold it each day, through every challenge, through every wavering moment, then there is nothing you once imagined that cannot be. For you are not just someone living in reality. You are the one rewriting it from the deepest level. Emotion is not the result of circumstance. Emotion is a signal, and not a random signal, but a call with the power to shape reality. Every emotion you nurture within is like a frequency broadcasting steadily, unceasing, unbroken, calling forth things of the same frequency to draw near to you. Most people are unaware of this. They let emotions come and go like clouds in the sky. Joy is kept, sadness rejected, anger blamed on others, fear hidden away. But they do not realize this. It is emotion, not thought, that the subconscious hears first, and it is emotion, not words, that the universe responds to fastest. You may think you are desiring something, a promotion, a relationship, a state of peace, but if the emotion accompanying it is lack, anxiety, insecurity, then the signal you are sending out is not, I am ready to receive, but I am afraid I don't have it. And the universe does not distinguish between what you want and what you vibrate. It only knows one thing: to mirror back what you broadcast. Emotion is a summoning tool. It does not rely on language, logic, or empty prayers. It relies on the frequency that truly exists within you. You may smile outwardly, speak positively all day, but if inside you still contract, resist, despair, or feel unworthy, then what you receive will be no different from what has always been. Not because you are not good enough, but because the signal you broadcast has not changed. And that signal is the emotion you choose to carry each day. The miracle is, you do not need to be positive 24/7. You only need to be honest with the emotions you have and consciously transform them. In doing so, you are no longer ruled by random emotions, but begin to live intentionally in the frequency you choose. It is like selecting a radio station. If you want classical music, you do not blame the channels playing rock. You simply tune to the right frequency, and the music you want appears. Emotion works the same. When you hold an emotion long enough, you are tuning the dial so that life begins to align with it. Ask yourself, what emotion are you living in the most each day? Not fleetingly, but the background state, the silent, ongoing feeling within you. Is it anticipation or fear, gratitude or resentment, fullness or lack, calm or doubt? Because that emotional field not only attracts matching experiences, it also shapes the way you make decisions, perceive problems, and treat others. It creates the entire life context you call fate. The strongest emotion is the one you no longer need to hide. When you dare to sit with it, acknowledge it, understand why it is there, then it begins to transform. You do not need to eliminate negative emotion. You only need to stop letting it control the signal you send out. And you do this by choosing your state again each time you feel yourself being pulled by an old reflex. For example, instead of saying, I'm afraid I won't be enough, whisper within, I am learning to trust the fullness within me. The language may differ, but what matters is that the emotion accompanying it is real. And if you repeat this each time anxiety arises, you are rewriting the code that governs the energy you emit. When you live in gratitude, you are broadcasting the signal, I am receiving. When you live in peace, you are telling the universe, I am ready to hold good things long term. When you live in fullness, you do not only attract material abundance, you keep it. Because you are no longer a seeker, you are a resonator. Conversely, if you live in doubt, you are sending the signal, I don't truly believe. If you live in guilt, you are saying, I am unworthy. And the universe, like a perfect mirror, will return exactly what you emit, no more, no less. You can begin changing that signal right now. No one's permission is needed. Nothing outside must change first. You only need to spend a few minutes each day nurturing the emotion you wish to live with, as though it were already real. Even for a moment, that emotion will leave a vibration, and that vibration will resonate, ripple outward, and begin to alter the field of energy you live within. Emotion is your deepest speech to the universe. Do not repeat negative words simply out of habit. Do not send out signals of resistance just because the world has not changed yet. Begin from the only place you hold authority within, and from there everything outside will listen. You do not need to wait until everything is perfect to feel better. Feel better so that everything begins to change. Emotion is not something you have. Emotion is something you send. And what you send is what will return. So right now, what are you broadcasting to the universe? And what will you choose to change about your vibration starting today? There is a strange yet unchanging truth. Every piece of evidence in life comes after never before. You do not need to see something in order to believe. You need to believe first so that it has the chance to be seen. Evidence is not the cause of faith. It is the result. Most people go searching for confirmation. They want a sign, a clear signal, someone or something to prove to them that what I expect is real. But that very approach keeps them stuck in the same loop, waiting for a sign in order to believe, while the sign only appears once you already believe. True faith is not a statement of affirmation, nor is it a passing emotion. True faith is an inner state where you live as though what you choose is already real, even when nothing outside confirms it yet. You do not need to force yourself. You do not need to emphasize. You do not need to prove. You only need to be present, behave, respond, and think as though it has already happened. And when you can hold that state long enough, reality will have no choice but to rearrange itself accordingly. Because in the operating system of the universe, faith is the very first blueprint. It not only shapes behavior, but also vision, emotion, choices, and the frequency you emit. When you believe in something, you begin to choose different actions. You walk in a different direction. You automatically move away from what does not align and draw nearer to what does. And if you walk long enough, what you believe will appear. Not because it was proven, but because it was built. Faith does not wait for agreement. It does not need recognition. True faith is strong enough to stand alone quietly, firmly, while everything outside still denies it. It does not scream to be seen. It does not rebel to be proven. It only needs one person to keep the flame silently, unwaveringly. And then there will come a time when even those who once denied you will begin to ask, why has everything changed? The answer does not lie in any specific action. It lies in the deeper level where you chose to believe even when there was no evidence. And that very choice created the foundation for evidence to appear. There is something few people notice. Everything you are living today was once what you believed in the past. Whether good or bad, conscious or unconscious, every result is the consequence of some belief. You once believed you were unworthy, and then you met one relationship after another, one trial after another to confirm that belief. You once believed success was far away, and then you acted like someone who always missed the train. But there were also times you believed you were enough, and the moment you truly lived in that the world began to mirror light back to you. True faith does not depend on what the eyes see or the ears hear. It is the light shining from within, and when that light grows strong enough, it will cause everything around to turn toward its direction. Nothing mystical, only energy syncing with the original signal. And what is your original signal? Are you still letting emotions decide your belief? Do you only believe when you feel excited? Only believe when things go smoothly? If so, then your faith is swaying with the weather, and reality, being the perfect mirror, will respond with results just as wavering and unstable. To live in certainty, you must step before the path is visible. You must plant the seed before you see the sprout. You must hold the image in your heart before reality can reflect it. This requires persistence and a steadfast silence. You cannot demand tomorrow's evidence if today you have not sown enough faith. Observe those who truly live fully in their faith. They do not speak much. They do not try to persuade anyone. They are simply the embodiment of what they choose to believe, and thus life around them keeps rearranging itself to align. No reasoning needed, no debate required. True faith never needs defending with words because it has already been defended by experience. Like a flame, if you blow once and leave it, it will go out. But if you tend the flame every day, even just a small ember, then one day it will shine brightly enough to illuminate the very path you once thought did not exist. That is how evidence is born, not to convince you to believe, but to confirm that you never gave up. And from that moment, you will walk with a different kind of faith, no longer needing everything to be favorable in order to believe, but believing enough for everything to become favorable. That is the threshold of inner power. The place where you no longer depend on words, glances, or temporary results. You have become the very source of creating them. Because true faith does not come to react to reality. It comes to redesign reality. And if you dare to hold on to what you have chosen long enough, real enough, steadfast enough, then sooner or later reality will appear to tell you the evidence has come. But by then you will no longer need it, because you have already become the very thing you once chose to believe. Every time you make a decision, no matter how small, you are sending out a specific vibration into the informational field of the universe. Not when you complete the action, but in the very moment you choose. Decision is the initiating command. It transmits a signal of who you are, what you believe, and what you are aligning with. The problem is most people do not decide based on faith, but on fear. They do not choose to expand, but to avoid. They do not choose what is true to their soul, but what carries the least risk. And then they wonder why life does not open the way they expect. But how can a constricted vibration ever lead to a result of freedom? Faith is not found on the lips. It shows itself most clearly in action. You may say that you believe in abundance, but if you keep making decisions out of scarcity, hoarding, worrying, refusing to invest in yourself, then you are sending out a contradictory message. And the universe does not listen to words. The universe only responds to vibration. That is why every action, every choice, every step matters. Not because of its size, but because of the frequency present when you choose. One person may take a very small step but carry with it a powerful vibration of trust, and that opens a series of doors. Conversely, another person may do a great deal, but if it is all born of worry, the only result is exhaustion without answer. Acting with faith does not mean you are always certain of the outcome. It only means you agree to move forward without needing every answer in advance. It is a declaration to the universe, I have chosen. And from that moment the entire flow begins to shift and rearrange itself in the direction you are walking. There is a profound law. Energy does not move unless you move. You cannot wait for a new reality without acting in ways aligned with the new belief. You cannot expect change while behaving the same. You cannot call forth the new if you still let the old belief govern every choice. Decision is the test of consistency. What you think, what you feel, what you say, all are declarations. But what you choose, what you do, is the final declaration. Each action is like a seal stamped upon the blank page of the universe. No explanation needed, only clarity. And then you will see, as soon as you choose differently, circumstances will respond differently, perhaps not immediately. But layer by layer, your life will begin to change color, not because you begged for change, but because you changed the way you chose. Thought is the seed, emotion is the water, but action is the light that allows the seed to grow. Without action, every belief is a drifting idea. Without steps, every vibration remains locked in the mind. Whatever you wish to make real, you must walk toward it through your daily choices. A simple decision like choosing to speak truthfully, to set boundaries, to invest time in what you truly love, if carried out from the right belief, will trigger a series of changes you could never predict. Because action never stands alone. It forms frequency. That frequency forms environment. That environment produces results. Ask yourself, what vibrations have your recent choices been sending out? Do they express trust or defensiveness? Do they show that you are moving toward what you want or resisting what you fear? Every time you delay, you are not only losing time, you are sending the message, I am not ready. And reality, like a finely tuned machine, will pause until you are truly ready. On the other hand, every decisive action, even small, is an invisible declaration. I have chosen this belief as my foundation. And then, step by step, you will see life respond differently. Those you once thought were obstacles gradually fade. Doors you never knew existed suddenly open, not because you did more, but because you acted with clearer vibration. No one can choose for you. But once you truly choose, you are no longer a seeker. You become an activator. And when you act with faith, your action does more than bring results. It elevates who you are. Because you no longer need permission from outside. You have become the source of command for yourself. From here, every day becomes an opportunity to choose differently. Not because you have to, but because you want to live as someone who truly believes. And it is this loyalty to faith in each small action that will make you the one living in the clearest vibration, not waiting, not wavering, not half-hearted. Acting with faith is not performance. It is the understanding that every decision you make is shaping not only the circumstances outside, but also the person you are inside. And that person, if nurtured rightly, will become the one reality itself must respond to. Not because of luck, but because you were consistent. Not because of a miracle, but because you are the one commanding the vibration of your life, one decision at a time. Have you ever tried to use willpower to change your life? Using the force of reason, discipline to compel yourself to think positively, act consistently, behave properly, only to fall back into old patterns, pulled again into familiar loops, feeling exhausted inside because you've been forcing for too long. That is not because you are weak. It is because you are using the wrong tool at the wrong frequency. Willpower can ignite an action, but it cannot sustain a state. Willpower is like a matchstick. It can spark a flame, but without fuel, that flame quickly dies. What carries you farther, deeper, longer is not the hardness of the mind, but the soft and steady vitality of imagination infused with emotion. Because the universe does not respond to pressure. The universe responds to vibrational imagery. When you imagine something with deep immersion, with genuine emotion merging into the image, you are sending out a signal that is clear, consistent, and powerfully resonant. It does not need to be repeated hundreds of times like a command. It only needs to be envisioned once, clearly, vividly, and with enough emotion to plant a signal capable of summoning the future toward you. On the other hand, when you rely only on willpower, you easily fall into tension. You repeat a positive affirmation, but inside you still feel it is not true. You force yourself to act, but the energy you carry is one of lack and pressure. You think you are striving, but in truth you are sending out a distorted signal. I don't have. I must force myself to have. And the world responds exactly as such. Emotion is the true current. Inner imagery is the map. And when you combine the two in a state of immersive imagination, you are creating a pure frequency, the one the universe most easily recognizes and responds to. Imagination is not fantasy. It is the native language of the subconscious. It is the most powerful creative tool you possess, yet the most underestimated in a culture obsessed with reason. Adults are taught to be realistic, to be rational, to calculate. But they do not know no wall of reality is ever built without first beginning as an imagined picture. No building exists without a blueprint. And no blueprint exists without first a moment of vision. Do you want to live a different life? Do not begin with the question how. Begin with vision, clear, detailed, emotional of what you want to live. See it as if it is happening. Feel it as if it is already true. Touch it with intuition, with gratitude, even before it arrives. And you will see your field shifts. Your behavior shifts. Opportunities draw nearer, not because you forced, but because you resonated. Willpower is muscle. Imagination with emotion is electricity. Muscle can push the door, but only electricity can make the door open on its own. Do not fight the door. Send the right current. Look back at the times you achieved something easily. Was it not usually when you weren't straining, weren't worrying, but simply saw it ahead of time, as though it was the most natural thing? And compare that to the times you struggled mightily, but it still did not come. Was that not when you relied only on willpower, but inside you were full of resistance, doubt, and strain? The subconscious does not listen to reasons. It listens to emotions. And imagination with emotion is the primal frequency the subconscious understands without explanation, without persuasion. The image you create inside yourself is like a broadcast frequency. It transmits continuously, and the universe as a living navigation system gradually adjusts everything so that you encounter what you have envisioned. You do not need to force yourself to believe in what you cannot yet see. You only need to dare to imagine it long enough, deep enough, real enough, and what you imagine will begin to call forth things of the same frequency. People call it miracle, but in truth it is law. And this law is fair. It favors no one. It only serves those who know how to use the right tool. If you continue to rely only on willpower, you will feel drained. But if you begin to practice imagination with positive emotion as a daily inner ritual, you will see the current of life shift, not loudly, not dramatically, but like an underground stream steadily pushing you to the right shore. Therefore, do not start the day with what must I do. Start with what do I want to see inside me. Close your eyes, envision the state you want to live in, and let emotion flow into it like a deep background melody. You need only a few minutes, but if you do it consistently, it will rewrite the hidden program steering your life. Imagination is not an escape from reality. It is how you redesign reality from its foundations. And when you combine image with emotion, you do not just create a new belief. You infuse that belief with life force, so it seeks its own evidence in your lived experience. That is not theory. That is the true nature of the power you carry. And if you have never used it, then perhaps it is time you stop straining with willpower and begin imagining with emotion. No more effort is needed. Only more depth. No more strength. Only the right frequency. And when you are on the right frequency, the universe will replay to you the melody you have sent precisely, completely, unmistakably. No limitation truly exists except for what you agree to regard as real. And that is not just a motivational phrase. It is a deep law of how consciousness interacts with reality. What you call a barrier is often nothing more than an old thought repeated too many times until you mistook it for truth. You are not imprisoned by circumstance. You are held back by a mental model that has long been accepted and programmed. You are not truly limited by the outside world, but by the belief you unconsciously signed your name to. And every time you repeat in your head phrases like, I can't, I'm not enough, I already tried, but you are renewing the contract with that limitation. A limitation has no power if you do not sign it. The issue is this: the subconscious does not know what is real and what is imagined. It only knows what is repeated often enough with strong emotion. You do not need to be locked in a cell to feel there is no way out. You only need to believe that every door is already closed, and that feeling will make the world truly appear without openings for you. Conversely, someone in the hardest of situations, but if within they still hold a clear image of expansion, of escape, of a path forward, cracks will begin to show. Not because they are lucky, but because they refuse to accept limitation as the final word. Limitation can only survive in the land of agreement. You agree that you are lesser than it, and it presses down on you. But if you refuse to sign into that concept, it loses its authority over you. Nothing can shrink you unless you agree to contract yourself. Each time you say, "I can't ask again," who said that? Is it truly impossible? Or have I simply heard this too many times from the past, from parents, from school, from society, from my own fear? And then I repeat it as if it were an obvious truth. Every time you question a limitation, you loosen the rope. And if you are patient enough, the rope will fall away. Remember this: every limitation is shaped by negative imagination. They have no physical essence. They are only thought forms carrying energy. And the only thing that keeps them alive is that you continue to feed them with agreement, resignation, and repetition. You may say, "I don't know how," but that is very different from "I can't." Not knowing how is a temporary condition, but can't is a conclusion, and conclusion is limitation. When you begin to change your inner language from "I can't" to "I am learning how," from "I don't have to," "I am creating the conditions," you are reclaiming control. You are shifting from victim to designer. Limitations do not always have to be broken with force. Sometimes you only need to stop seeing them as walls and instead as mist to be walked through. You do not need to fight the limitation. You only need to stop cooperating with it. You only need to stop resonating with the fear behind it. Because most limitations are merely incarnations of some fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of ridicule, fear of not being acknowledged, fear of not being good enough. And that very fear puts on the cloak of limitation then, walks through your life as though it were destiny. But if you look directly at it and ask, are you only an illusion borrowing the voice of the past? Then perhaps for the first time you will see that the limitation is not as solid as you thought. True freedom is not being able to do everything. Freedom is no longer believing in false limitations. It is being able to look straight at what once frightened you and say, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but now I choose expansion." When you shift perspective, what once seemed impossible becomes possible, not because circumstances changed first, but because you did. And from the moment you stop agreeing with the limitation, you begin to open the space for a new script to be written. No one can limit you unless you do it to yourself first. No wall is tall enough to block a thought that has chosen freedom, and no past is heavy enough to crush a present ablaze with new awareness. It all begins with a small but powerful question: where did this limitation really come from? And why do I keep believing in it? The answer may not arrive immediately, but the very act of asking is already a crack in the old structure, and cracks are the doorway for light to enter. Limitations do not disappear because you fight them. They disappear because you stop granting them the right to exist in your mind. And your mind, once freed, becomes the most fertile ground to plant a new reality, one where you are no longer defined by what you once believed was impossible. At that point, you do not need to break every limitation at once. You only need to begin with one, the limitation about yourself. And when you dare to move beyond the old image of who you thought you were, everything else will self-adjust. No pressure needed. Only one decision: I no longer believe this as a limitation. From that moment on, you will see reality never truly limited you. You gave limitation a power it never really had. But if you once gave it, you can take it back. And begin right now to live as though freedom is the default, not the reward. It is not the words you say once and forget that shape your fate. It is the sentences you repeat in your head, in your thoughts, in your smallest conversations. They are the lines of code, silently programming the entire reality you are living in. You do not live according to truth. You live according to what you believe is truth, and that belief is reinforced by the words you choose to repeat every day. A person who says, "I'm not good with numbers," often enough, will find money gradually becoming a foggy, inaccessible territory. A person who frequently exclaims, "I never have enough time," will find life becoming more compressed, rushed, deprived of breathing space. And a person who sighs, "That's life. Nothing comes easy every morning," will find each step truly becoming heavier, as though life itself were against them. But there is no conspiracy, only a chain of vibrations being repeated, then gradually crystallizing into events, environments, and outcomes. You are coding your life with the very language you use. The subconscious does not understand the concept of just kidding. It has no ability to distinguish between sincerity, sarcasm, or harmless catchphrases. It only hears and records with loyalty precision without judgment. And if a sentence is emphasized with emotion, whether joy, anger, frustration, or fear, the subconscious will treat it as priority. It will find every way to adjust behavior decisions, even the body and external circumstances, to protect the truth you just declared. That is why every word you repeat should not be taken lightly, because it is not just communication, it is instruction. Words are thought forms packaged with frequency. A mere idea, when made concrete in speech, carries sharper, more directed energy, and when repeated often, it becomes an automatic command running beneath the surface of consciousness. What you are living today may well be nothing more than the outcome of old commands repeated long enough that you forgot you ever uttered them. And if you want to change your life, you cannot just change action. You must begin with language. You must dare to dismantle old commands and reinstall new codes, deliberately programmed, carrying positive vibrations, authentic and full of vitality. But not every positive word carries power. A pretty phrase that is hollow without emotional connection will not touch the subconscious. Do not repeat an affirmation like a machine. Choose words you can believe in, even just 1%, and let emotion accompany each repetition. That is the true way to rewrite your own source code. For example, if you cannot yet believe I am wealthy, then do not force yourself to repeat a sentence your inner being resists. Instead, use a transitional phrase: I am learning how to expand prosperity in my life, or I am beginning to touch a new reality of finances. These statements are softer, truer, but still lead you toward the light. More importantly, they can reach the honest emotion within you. And emotion, as you know, is the strongest amplifier of words. Each morning you awaken, you are starting a program. The first sentence you speak sets the vibrational tone for the entire day. Another exhausting day is a code, and your body will obey. Something good will happen today is also a code, and reality will begin to find ways to sync with that frequency. Not because it is a magic spell, but because you are the one directing the vibrational network around you with your precise choice of words. And not only spoken words carry influence. The phrases you never say out loud but repeat in your mind also create vibrations. Self-criticism, self-pity, comparing yourself with others, if repeated enough, they sink deep into the belief system. And from there, destiny begins to distort. Not because of fate, but because silently you have rewritten the script of your life with unawakened language. If you want to live a broader, more expansive life, you need to start observing what you are saying when no one is listening. And if you are brave enough to change that script, you will see miracles begin not from somewhere far away, but from within the silent space of your own mind. From now on, choose words as if you are writing your destiny, because you are doing exactly that. Speak as though you are sending code to a machine that will construct your life. For every sentence is a small blueprint, and if you are persistent enough, that blueprint will become the house you live in. You do not need to say a lot. You only need to say right, and repeat what is right with a heart full of faith. You do not need to become an orator. You only need to become a conscious programmer. Beginning tomorrow morning, or in this very moment, choose each word anew. Every sentence you utter, whether to others or to yourself, can be an unlocking command, or a code that locks you inside an old reality. The difference lies in choice. And choice begins with language. There is a place no one else can enter with you. No teacher, no advice, no noise of life. That place needs no decoration. It needs no lights. It has no history and no prejudice. It does not belong to the past or the future, but to the in-between, the space where pure stillness appears when everything else has quieted down. That place has been called by many names, but at its deepest layer, it is inner silence. Do not confuse it with outer silence, with a closed room or a meditation retreat in the mountains. Inner silence does not depend on surrounding conditions. It does not demand isolation, but a total presence within you. It is the state where the inner voice no longer chases after what must be done, no longer pursues what has not yet arrived, and no longer repeats the old wounds. In that state, something strange happens. You begin to hear yourself again, not the noisy self full of craving and fear, but the essence, the part that has always known who you are, what you want, and where you need to go. When did you forget how to sit with yourself in stillness? When did you allow every quiet space to be filled with screens, sounds, news, events, responsibilities? And when did you start calling those things real life, while true life was being drowned beneath the noisy waves of what is necessary? You cannot rewrite the script of your life if you do not pause to read what you have already written, and you cannot hear guidance from intuition if you keep the outer speakers on all day and night. It is precisely within inner silence that the script of tomorrow is rewritten. No words are needed. No plans are needed. You only need to be present, completely undistracted, without grasping. The mind is like water. When it ripples, you see only distorted reflections of reality. But when it grows still, the surface becomes a mirror. And in that mirror you can clearly see what is true and what is merely an echo of the past. When you touch true silence, you will see that everything you once thought you lacked is already here, not in material form but in potential form. And from that moment you no longer beg life to give you more. You begin to call forth what you already possess in your deepest layers to step out into reality. By what means? By imagination, by feeling, by conscious choice. But before any of those, you need stillness. For if you are not silent, you cannot hear any signal at all. All true creation arises from silence. A beautiful piece of music is written from the space between notes. A painting begins from the empty canvas. And a new destiny also needs a blank space to appear. What do you want to happen in the future? You are writing it right now, not with action, but with inner frequency. And the strongest frequency does not come from worry, pressure, or busyness. It comes from a state of quiet, where you no longer try to grasp, but become the very thing you wish to call forth. Try letting everything drop for a few minutes each day. You do not need to meditate by formula. Just sit with yourself. No judgment, no direction, no reaction to the voice in your head. Simply recognize I am still here. And that alone is power. From that silence, images will arise. Perhaps an idea, an inspiration, a clear sense that something is drawing near. That is not coincidence. That is a message you cannot hear if you are still speaking too loudly in your own mind. When you can hold inner silence deeply enough, you not only connect with the higher essence of yourself, but also with the field of information of the universe, where all possibilities already exist waiting for you to link. And that connection requires no degree, no title, only that you become still genuine and complete in the present moment. No one can do it for you, but once you touch it, you will no longer search elsewhere, because you will see every answer has always been within. From there, every action you take will no longer spring from panic or lack. It will come from a solid center inside, a center that knows I do not need to strain to create life. I only need to adjust to become the person aligned with what I have already seen within the silence of the soul. Do not fear silence. Do not avoid it. Do not rush to fill it with work, music, social media, or even self-help books. Some things cannot be learned from words. They can only be remembered in absolute stillness. And if you truly want to rewrite tomorrow, the starting point is not at your desk. It is in the unseen emptiness of your heart, where you stop running, stop forcing, stop playing roles, and simply return, not to escape life, but to create it from a depth no storm can touch. Silent but not empty, wordless but not without meaning, still but the beginning place of every new movement. And perhaps in this very moment you need nothing more than the courage to step into that silence and listen. For what you have been seeking all along has been waiting for you there. All this time, imagination is not a child's game, nor is it the privilege of artists or poets. Imagination is the primal power of every human being, a power forgotten or mistaken for hollow daydreaming. But in truth, it is the secret tool of all those who have ever changed the world, not through force, but through a clear vision of what had never existed before. Everything you see around you today, the chair, the room, the house, even the city, was once an image in someone's imagination. No exceptions. The image comes first. Matter follows after. Imagination is the invisible blueprint. Reality is merely the construction. So if you do not yet see what you desire in life, it does not mean it cannot be. It may be that you have not imagined it clearly enough. Or worse, you have been imagining the opposite, and doing so every day with very real emotion. Every time you think of the worst that could happen, you are imagining. Every time you worry about failure, you are imagining. Every night you lie down picturing a bleak scenario and feeling unease spread through your body, you are using your imagination. The only difference is, you are using it against yourself. Imagination does not choose sides. It only amplifies what you place in it. And if you do not learn to use it consciously, it will become the most sophisticated machine for producing fear. The more sensitive you are, the deeper you can imagine. But without guidance, that imagination drifts into the dark, where what has not yet happened is already felt as though it were real. So do not say you lack imagination. You are living in it. The only question is, are you mastering it? Imagination is the highest power of the soul, because it transcends every physical limitation. You may be sitting in a small room with very little money in your account, But if you close your eyes and vividly feel the image of a spacious, abundant, free life, in that moment you have touched a different frequency of reality. And if you persist in nurturing that image, the entire mechanism of your subconscious will begin to adjust to move you closer to that frequency. This is not blind faith. This is the way the mind operates. The subconscious cannot distinguish between reality and imagination. It only responds to what is repeated with strong emotion. And imagination is the tool that delivers you to that emotion before the event has occurred. Ordinary people act according to what they see. Creators act according to what they see within. And it is they who change the world, because they are not bound by present circumstances. They live in a higher reality before it arrives, and then the real world must adjust to catch up with them. Imagination is not escaping reality. On the contrary, it is how you establish a new one. When you imagine deliberately, consistently, with clear emotion, you are sending a blueprint into the depths of the mind. And from there, your entire nervous system behavior, decisions, opportunities, even coincidences will begin to rearrange to fit that design. It does not matter where you are. It does not matter if you have all the answers. You only need to begin imagining again, not with the eyes, but with the heart. Not imagining like an outsider watching a film, but like the one living inside it. Feel the space, the sounds, the touch, the emotions. Do not just see, but feel. You do not need to dream another person's dream. You only need to be honest about what truly lights up your heart, and then imagine it as though you were already living in it. And if you remain consistent, reality will have no choice but to reflect that image. Imagination does not act for you, but it changes the quality of every action you take. A person working in anxiety produces a very different vibration from someone working in the certainty of what they are building, and what shapes that difference is the vivid image they hold inside. You do not need to force yourself to believe in what has not yet happened. You only need to allow yourself to imagine it as a real possibility. Do not complicate the process. Let imagination be natural, gentle, filled with curiosity like when you were a child, when everything was possible. Because in that moment, you are reconnecting with the most primal energy of creation. If today you do not reimagine yourself, you will continue to live according to the old image, one painted by circumstances, by the past, by others. But you can choose again, at any moment, through imagination. No need to wait for perfect conditions. Only a moment where you pause, close your eyes, and begin to picture something better approaching. And if you hold that image clear enough, long enough, real enough, it will become the mirror that reflects your life. No longer daydreaming, but truth created from within. You can work from early morning until late at night. You can strain yourself with dozens of plans. You can run endlessly for years. But if the vibration inside you is still transmitting the frequency of lack, fear, and doubt, then no matter how much you do, the universe will only respond to what you are becoming, not to what you want to have. This is one of the most shocking truths for those who are used to living by willpower and discipline. Effort does not create wealth. Vibration is what determines the outcome. Because the universe does not respond to the number of hours you put in, it responds to the frequency you emit. And that frequency does not speak in words.